Ready for that? Is the excellence of the wudu for Adhaan, yes? Yeah, but we've done the first, I think. Could you repeat from the beginning? Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam, Rasulullah. We're just continuing the Fiqh of the Salah from the book Concise Presentation of the Fiqh. Today is the 15th of Dhul Hijjah, 1443. Wednesday, the 13th of July, 2022. So those of you who are following us in the book, we're on page 92, the call to the prayer. The ruling concerning it, the call to prayer is the announcement of the beginning of the time of the prayer said with specific words. It's obligatory. Malik ibn al-Huwayrith, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, if the prayer time comes, one of you should make the call to prayer and the eldest of you should lead you in prayer. The Prophet ﷺ ordered them to make the call to prayer, and an order implies obligation, as is well known. Anas, may Allah be pleased with him, said, if the Prophet ﷺ would lead us in a military expedition against the people, he would not start the encounter until the morning. He would wait, and if he heard the call to prayer, he would refrain from attacking. If he did not hear the call to prayer, he would attack them. Its virtues.
Okay. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. Amma ba'd. The delay was because of some connection. Password has been changed, so that's why we were delayed for the start. And we have already, alhamdulillah, started the chapter of calling for the prayer, which is the Adhaan, and we established the fact it is compulsory. So you need to know that calling the Adhaan is compulsory. Even if you are at your house, it's compulsory. Even if you have heard the Adhaan in the next door masjid, where the loudspeakers, like in our countries, Muslim countries, they have the loudspeakers, the megaphones, and you can hear the Adhaan from outside. And if you're praying not in the masjid, you have to pray in your house, for example, you have to make the Adhaan in your house. And here it is compulsory, as the Prophet ﷺ commanded these two to make Adhaan and let one of you, the one who is older, to lead you in the prayer. Now we're going to talk about the virtues of the Adhaan. Once we talk about the virtues of the Adhaan, then you'll know not just compulsory, that we should be competing with one another regarding who makes the Adhaan. Let's go to the virtues, please.
Its virtues. Muawiyah, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, the callers to the prayer will have the longest necks on the day of resurrection. Abdurrahman ibn Abdullah ibn Abdurrahman ibn Abu Sasa al-Ansari al-Mathni.
Okay, just as the first hadith, إن المؤذنين أطول الناس أعناقا يوم القيامة. The mu'adhinun, the callers for the prayer, they have the longest, says necks, yes? Is that translation?
Yeah.
The longest necks here, the next on the day of resurrection. The scholars differed about the meaning of the longest necks. Is it the longest necks that the ones who are always looking forward for more rewards, so you're stretching your neck to have more reward? Or does it mean that the person on the day of resurrection, when the sweat is because of the sun is too close, too much, and the ones who have longer neck, he will have more space to breathe. So longer neck on the day of resurrection, those people are sweating. Where you are having a longer neck, then you'll have more space to breathe. Or some of the scholars, they said, the longest neck here as a description from the Arabs to say that he is a master, he is a chef, a chief. So he is the head of the clan. So they call him the head of the clans, the longest necks. Also, it means, some of the scholars said, the one who does a lot of good deeds. The one who does a lot of good deeds. So these are some of the meanings of the ones who have got the longest necks. What does it mean? We said about 4 meanings for that, but it means something which is very good. Now, this hadith in itself, it shows that the mu'adhineen, they have a very powerful reward, but there is more than that. We have a second hadith, and we're going to have an add as well, more than that. Abdurrahman ibn Abdullah ibn Abdurrahman ibn Abi Sa'sa al-Ansari, and then the Mazini from his father, he said that he's been told by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri he said to him,
I see that you are a person who loves goats and the open spaces. If you are with your goats or in the open spaces and you make the call to prayer, raise your voice, for everything within the sound of the caller, including the humans, jinn, and anything else, will be a witness to it on the day of resurrection. I heard that from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So here we find that the person who makes adhan in the open space, maybe the urban areas, okay, so he makes an adhan, then everything, whether it's a human being, whether it's a jinn, whether it's something which is lifeless, will, if he hears the adhan, it will testify for you on the day of resurrection. And even more than that. We find, for example, Salman al-Farisi, he said, the hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, when the man is in a land which is open space, Bedouin areas, where the goats and all of that, and the salah is due, then let him make wudu. If he can't find water, then let him make tayammum, which is dry ablution. And if he does make iqamah on itself, then the two angels who are with him, the one on the right and the left, they will pray along with him. But if he made the adhan and the iqamah, then there will be soldiers praying behind him. Nobody knows except for Allah Azza wa Jal, where the two ends of the road cannot see one another. Imagine how many angels will be praying behind you, so that if you are on one side of the angels of that line, you will not be able to see the other side. So how many soldiers will be praying behind you? So if you made iqamah, there's only two angels praying with you behind you. But if you make the adhan and the iqamah, a line of angels from the soldiers of Allah Azza wa Jal, where the two ends cannot see one another. So if you stand on one end from that row, you will not see the other end of the row. As it shows you the adhan, what it does to you in terms of rewards. Also, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-Imam Damin, the Imam is a guarantor. Al-Mu'adhin Mu'taman, and the Mu'adhin is trusted. What does it mean? The Imam is guarantor, is the Imam is the one who is going to be praying, leading the prayer. So if any person did a mistake, don't worry, he's a guarantor for you. He will basically take the mistake of yours on his behalf. So if any mistake you make it behind the Imam, don't worry about that. The Imam is for you. He is a guarantor. Whereas the Mu'adhin is Mu'taman, he's trusted, because he's trusted with the time when he starts the adhan for people to break their fast. In the Maghrib, he's trusted, for example, for the prayer to start the time of it. For example, you can't pray before the adhan if the adhan is on time. So he's trusted. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma give guidance to the Imams, and Allah Azza wa Jal had pardoned the Mu'adhineen. In other narrations, Allahumma gfir lil Mu'adhineen. O Lord, forgive for those who are callers of the adhan. Also, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that everything will be forgiven for the call of the adhan as much as his adhan, as far as his adhan would reach, and everything which is dry or moist will be seeking forgiveness on his behalf as long as he had heard him. And that's why we make the adhan as loud as we can. And also the Prophet ﷺ, he said that if the people know what lies for them from the reward in the adhan and the first row, and they can't find anything to grab it except by drawing lots. Let's say everybody arrived at the same time, and the first row is enough for 5 people. Okay, so everybody wants to be there, but they have more than 5 people, so they have to draw lots. They will draw lots. But people nowadays, they offer their places in the first row. They shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't offer your place for anybody, first row. And also for the adhan. And I'm talking here where the adhan is not allocated to a mu'adhin. So if you come to a masjid and the adhan is allocated to a mu'adhin, a specific mu'adhin, person who calls for the adhan, I'm not allowed to go and race that mu'adhin to make the adhan, because this is being set exactly the same thing with the imam. Even I'm a hafid, for example, and he's not a hafid, I can't just go and race to the microphone and start leading the prayer. So we're talking about that if there is no imam or mu'adhin is being allocated, specified, then we should be competing for the adhan. The Prophet ﷺ also, he said, when the salah adhan is called, then you'll find the shaitan leave with what? Wind sound. You know, breaking wind sound? Like breaking wind sound. He will run away, breaking wind. And as soon as the imam, so he goes back, and as soon as the iqamah will take place, he will run back again. And when the person starts his prayer, he's back to whisper to you, telling you what to do, what is happy, how much profit you have made today, how much loss is done. Okay, so this is where the adhan is to be called, and when the iqamah is to be called, he runs away. That's why the scholars, they said, which is better? Making the adhan or being an imam? What do you think? I'm giving you now the option to say, which one is better? To be an imam or to be a muadhin? Which one you want to race to? Muadhin or imam? Yalla. Anybody would like to participate? Can I just ask you, brothers, there's no corona, ikhwani, these days. Well, there is a corona, but it's not really, it's safe. Come, fill up the gaps, ikhwani. Wallahi, I'm asking you. Okay, I'm giving £500 for the person who is in the front row. Let's just see who's going to compete for that one now. £500 for this one. You know that I'm not going to get 500. That is why if I pull 500 pounds, I'm going to see on the be fighting. Fadal, yalla. Which one? You say mu'adhin. Okay, anybody? Mu'adhin. Anybody else? Who says imam? Yes, so there is ikhtilaf. It's the same thing with the scholars, with the ikhtilaf. Difference among the scholars. But more on the side of what? Mu'adhin. More on the side of the mu'adhin. You might ask a further question. Did the Prophet ﷺ make adhan? No, he did not make adhan. He made adhan when he prays on his own. He did not make adhan publicly. So if the Prophet did not do it, doesn't it make that really that sort of rewardable? Did the Prophet make it be an imam? All the time as an imam. Umar and Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali, were they mu'adhineen? No. But they were what? Imams. Are you still holding to the opinion? The mu'adhin is better? Okay, why did the Prophet of Allah and Abu Bakr and Umar did not offer the adhan? Anybody like to give me an answer? Yalla ya Zubair. Huh? How did having the loudest voice? Believe me, Umar Khattab, he could shake the whole masjid if he speaks, mashallah. Very powerful, Umar Khattab. That's why the Prophet said to him, when you pray, take it easy, Umar. When he was praying his voluntary sunnah, he was really loud. Umar Khattab could be heard from a long way, you know. No, he's got 4 mu'adhin. Bilal, and also he's got Ibn Maktoum in Medina. He's got also Abu Hudhayfa, and also he's got Sa'd al-Qarb as well. 4 mu'adhin he's got. Now, Fadal. I'm asking the question, you're asking me a question.
No, I'm going on this.
Yeah, basically you're answering something on. Right. The imamah, yeah, this is to say that you are basically supporting that the imam is better than mu'adhin. But there was no comparison here between adhan and imamah. Imamah, ikhwani, is, we call it taklif. In Arabic means it's a job. You used to do it. The Prophet ﷺ, he has to be an imam. Abu Bakr, he has to be an imam. Because they're khalifas. Umar has to be an imam. Why is the reason they will not be mu'adhineen? Because they haven't got the time. They've got more time for other things the Muslims are in need of. But if it's been left for you to compete with, it's the adhan. The imam, they used to, for example, if there is no imam to be allocated, no one will step forward to be an imam. Do you understand me? They will, you'll be the one. Okay? Now these days, a person wants to be an imam, as soon as the imam makes the mu'adhin makes the iqamah, he's forwarding himself without even anybody allocating him. He just wants to be an imam. Where at the time the companions, yatadafa'un, they will be pushing one another. You become imam. You lead the prayer. You lead the prayer. Our time is the difference, isn't it? Please, you make adhan. The other way around, isn't it? My voice is not as good. He's good, but he's shy. Please make the adhan. It's the other way around. We should be competing with the adhan and not forwarding ourselves for the imam. Not the other way around, competing for the imamah and leaving the adhan behind. You, brother, you do the adhan. No, if you have a chance to make the adhan, make the adhan. أطول الناس أعناقا المؤذنون يوم القيامة. Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man adnana thnatay ashrata sana." This has been to be added as well. I just remember this hadith. Okay, I'm just going to read it. It's come to your mind once, never again. Right. Prophet ﷺ, he said, العلم صيد فقيده بالكتابة. Right. So we have number 9. He who makes adhan for 12 years, وجبت له الجنة. Jannah is guaranteed. There's one hadith which is not authentic, 7 years. But it's actually the authentic one is 12 years. Man adhana 12 sana, he who had made the adhan for 12 years, then Jannah is his. Jazakallah. Alhamdulillah. I remember this hadith from the Silsila Sahih of Shaykh al-Albani. 12 years. Even home. If you make the adhan. But of course, the one who's making here adhan for the people, they're even home. So people needs to know, when you are at home, people, they jump to the iqamah. If you make the iqamah, stop him. No, adhan. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Even for the sisters, we're going to see sisters make their own adhan. They're not going to go on top of the roof and make the adhan. No, within their family. But if there's a man, it will be more priority for the man because he's much stronger voice. Much stronger voice. So remember the adhan, ya akhwan. And the adhan, shaitan doesn't like it. He flees. He goes out with breaking wind sound. Sorry. If Arfan was here, would kill me. No.
Okay, the description of the call.
Now let's go to the description of the call. So if you want to learn the adhan today, Ashraq, yes, you're going to stay for this class. Now, Fadl.
Abdullah ibn Zayd ibn Abdul Rabihi.
Ibn Abdi Rabbihi.
Rabbihi said, while the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was intending to strike a bell to call the people to prayer, although he did not like it as it was the practice of the Christians, a visitor came to me in my sleep at night.
Before the visitor came to the sleep, because this hadith has been said with a narration that there is a one which adds to it something else, which is that the Muslims at those days before, they were talking, what should we do to call for the prayer? First, they said maybe the bell for the Christians. Others said, no, we'll take what's that called? Is it horn for the Jews? And it's called as well conch. Is that a good word for it? Conch? Konch. What's the conch means? Can you just Google it, please? What's that? CONH. CH. I'm talking about, this is like, no, it's like, you know the big shell? The big shell. You got a word like this? Huh? Is that the shell? That's a shell. That's the one. That's the one I'm talking about. They don't. It's a conch. You blow into it, makes a sound. Yeah, it's a conch. Stuck to my mind, subhanAllah, for a long time. It's a conch, right? So the Jews, ooh, that's their color for the prayer, and the Christian, ding, 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 ding. But the Muslims, what? Allahu Akbar. So what does it mean when you call the prayer? Ding, ding. What does that mean? How can you call for a prayer? Ding. You're calling for maybe a dance, but you don't call for a prayer. Call for the prayer is to say, come to Allah, come to Allah, come to the prayer, come to the forgiveness, come. So the Muslims, they were using something that you didn't like. The Prophet of Allah, he didn't have some sort of revelation yet. So he adapted the bell. Now we're going to talk about this is the conch. Yes, go on. This is the one. Yeah, that's the one. Right. So now we're talking about the dream of one of the companions called Abdullah ibn Zayd. Fadl.
Okay, it was a man wearing 2 green garments, and in his hand was a bell.
And he's an angel. This is an angel. We will know later he's an angel. Now,
And in his hand was a bell he was carrying. I said to him, O servant of Allah, do you want to sell the bell? He said, what will you do with it? I said, we will call the people to the prayer. He said, shall I not tell you about something that is better than that? I said, certainly. He said, instead say, Allah is great.
Allahu Akbar.
Allah is great.
Okay,
Allah is
I'll do
Allah
that
is
for you,
great.
Doctor.
Yeah.
So here we find the angel came. Well, later on we know he's an angel from the Prophet ﷺ. This man has got 2 green thobe, which is the top and the bottom, and he's got in his hand a bell, naqus, ting, like this, naqus. And he, Abdullah ibn Zayd, he said in his dream, I said to the man, can you just sell me this one? He said to him, what are you going to do with it? He said, I'm going to call for the prayer. I'm going to use it for calling to the prayer. He said, shall I tell you something better? Here, when we say, shall I tell you something better than that, it doesn't mean that the comparison here, that there's something good and there is something better. Do you understand me? When you say, shall I tell you something better than that, that means the one before, it's good, but this is better. No, this is not in Arabic. For example, the Quran says, Allahu khayrun amma yushrikun. These people, is it better for them, for Allah to worship, or what they associate as partners? Are you saying to me associating things with partners is good? Do you understand me? Allah says in the Quran, Allahu khayr, which one is better, Allah or what you associate? Here, what associate, it doesn't mean they're good. If you make shirk, it's not good, it's haram, shirk. So when he says to him, shall I inform you something better than this, it doesn't mean what the bell is good. Arabic doesn't take that. Do you understand me? It means that, shall I tell you something better than what you are doing? It could be disaster what you are doing. It could be good, but it could be disaster as well. So in this case, it's not correct, it's good at all. So he said to him, yes, tell me. So he said, you say, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, to the rest of the Adhaan. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, 17 words. Then he said, he went behind. After he finished that, what did it say? He said,
Yeah, then he went back a little and said,
okay, back a little here. There is another hadith from Abdullah ibn Zayd where he describes a bit more this hadith. He says, when he wanted to make the Adhaan, these words, he said, shall I tell you something better? He went onto Jadam, which is a small fence. Okay, small fence. So he went on top of it. And then when he wanted to make the Iqamah, he stepped down. So we know from that as well, the Adhaan is to be where? On top. And the Iqamah is to be on the same ground as the people. So he went on top of a fence, half a fence. He went on top of it, and he made the Adhaan, called for the Adhaan. So we know that from the Adhaan here in this hadith, that is the Adhaan is to be said on the top. Bilal used to stand up on top of the Kaaba when he was made the Adhaan when they regained Kaaba, because the Adhaan here came at the time of Medina. So he used to go on top of like something high, like a palm tree, and then he would make the Adhaan high. Why is it to be high, something top? Because number one, his voice will reach more. Even megaphones, when you put them up, reach more. Number two, people to see. That is why the sunnah is to put the muaddin himself on something high. I'm not talking about these skyscrapers, minarets, which cost millions of pounds. The minaret, itself, if I want to build a minaret which is high, it must cost as much as the masjid of yours. You know that. If you're going to make skyscraper minaret, it costs more than the masjid, 3-4 times. And that's waste of time, money. You're just on top of the masjid. So the muaddin should go himself and have a microphone up there and call for the adhan up there. Why? So that even the deaf can what? See him. Could see the muaddin. And this is, alhamdulillah, an etiquette which is being done in some of the countries, like in some of the villages in Morocco. They do it. The muaddin goes on top of the mirror. In some of the areas in Pakistan, I have seen it. The muaddin goes with the mirror to the top. MashaAllah, he goes at the top and he calls with a microphone from the top so the people can see him. There on the top. And as soon as he comes down, they make the iqamah for the salah. I've seen with my own in Karachi. MashaAllah, this is a sunnah. Okay. And as well, we should be as, well, we can't go on the top, but at least we could make the adhan in a different place. As a shraq, the sunnah for you. As to, for example, to build or to make a microphone next to the door there. So when the person makes the adhan, it's not the place where he makes iqamah. Because here, look, the hadith he said, here this one, istakhara, he went behind, back. So it's not the place, the same place for iqamah. And it's very easy to do it now. We could just make a plug for the adhan. So we've done it at Masjid Wise, we've done it at Masjid Aylesbury. So the muadhin, he will be next to the door. And it was the case, if you remember, in our old masjid here. Remember? You've adopted that and you were making the adhan next to the door. So you could make we have adopted it in Luton. So we make the adhan outside. You don't, if you come to the hall, you'll hear the adhan. Where is the adhan coming from? Because the muadhin is not in front of you. He's actually next to the door outside with a microphone stand for him. And he makes the adhan to apply the sunnah. It's not to make the adhan in the same place where you make the iqamah. The iqamah is to be made here, but the adhan has to be made either next to the outside door, even the outside door, so that people can see you, mashallah. When you come, the inshallah is mixing the adhan. And that is from the sunnah. I mean, would have been more sunnah is to be on top of the roof, but it's impossible in this in this country. Maybe you're gonna cause us trouble. Allahu musta'an. But this is the adhan that is supposed to be. We're supposed to make it the adhan where people can hear us as well from the, like for example in East London, they make the adhan of Dhuhr and Asr, and even sometimes Maghrib if it is not late, they make it where? Loud. Yeah. In a place called, I think is as well in Small Heath, they do that recently, but I've heard it in Bradford. Bradford, mashallah, proper adhan, loud, you could hear it from the local masjid, because most of them are Muslims, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. طيب, ikhwani. Coming now to the iqamah. The iqamah here, it says, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah, qad qamat as-salah, qad qamat as-salah, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, which is the iqamah that you normally do. But is it correct to make the iqamah of the masjids which are affiliated to the Hanafi madhab? You know the iqamah there? It's like the adhan. You make it's like adhan, but they add qad qamat as-salah, qad qamat as-salah. So they say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah, ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah, hayya al falah, hayya al falah, qamat as-salah, qad qamat as-salah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha. Exactly like the adhan, but they add what? Qad qamat as-salah twice. Is that correct? It is correct. There's a hadith as well for it. So we're not going to be fussy about this. So if somebody made it the Hanafi way with some, don't beat him up. Inshallah, no problem. But we are got to the hadith, which is our hadith here. That is hadith is authentic. That's the iqamah for the salah. Right. Now, as soon as he seen this dream, what did he do? He said, in the morning?
When the morning came, I went to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu and informed him of what I had seen. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu said, that vision is true, Allah willing. Then he ordered for the call to be made. Bilal, may Allah be pleased with him, the ex-slave of Abu Bakr, made the call with those words.
Right. Before I made a mistake and I said 17 words, it's 15 words. So the adhan is 15 words or 19 words with making tarji' shahadatayn. So it's 15 words. Hadith Abdullah ibn Zayd is 15 words. Or make it 19 words by saying like following. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah to the end. What I added here, I added Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah, Ashhadu Rasulullah. What? Quietly. It's called tarji'. This one is also, the adhan has been mentioned from Abi Mahdura. Abu Mahdura, sorry. Abu Mahdura radiyallahu anhu wa arda. طيب.
It's preferred for the caller to pronounce two sayings of Allah is great together. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when the caller says, Allah is great, you should say, Allah is great, Allah is great. This is a clear indication that the caller to the prayer combines these two sentences together and the listener responds in the same way.
Right. So here we find that the person, if he says Allahu, the muaddin says Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. This tells us that Allahu Akbar to be said with Allahu Akbar. I can't say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. You must have heard this adhan. Where? Where? Saudi Arabia. Not in the Haram. Yes? Some of the Bedouin areas. But it's not correct. It's supposed to be Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Why? Because the hadith he says, when you hear the muaddin says Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. He didn't say if the muaddin says Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar. He said when you say Allahu Akbar twice, then you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha, and so on and so forth. So this is a clear cut that the takbiratain, it will be combined. Not Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. You must have heard the Bedouin Imams. They say this. Anybody had heard this? Allahu Akbar and so on? No? Yes? Fadal, Jazakallah. Now, Fadal.
It's recommended to make tarjiyah. Tarjiyah is to repeat the two testimonies of faith in a louder voice after stating them in a quieter voice. Abu Mahdura, may Allah be pleased with him, stated that the Prophet ﷺ taught him to make the call to prayer in the following fashion.
Right. So here, that is, I said it before, exactly what I said. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله to the end of the adhan. Now.
Okay, the saying prayer is better than sleep in the first call for the Fajr prayer.
Listen to the what? What did he say again? The first what? Say that again, please.
The saying prayer is better than sleep.
I mean, salatu khayrun min an-nawm at when?
First call for the Fajr.
First call to the Fajr.
First call.
First call, not the second call. When do you hear it in the Haram? First or the second? In the Haram of Mecca, Medina. In most of the masajid, where do you hear Salatu Khayrun now? In the normal adhan or the first adhan?
The first for the tahajjud.
Second. The normal adhan. You'll hear it in the second one. True or not? Go back now and revise what I just said. When the muaddin makes the adhan for the Fajr, that Fajr starts, where do he put? Salatu Khayrun now is in the adhan which is before that, or in that adhan when the Fajr starts? Okay, Ishraqi, come here to the Fajr. Do you say Salatu Khayrun now or not? See? That's the adhan because he takes it from the Haram. Yeah. Jinasami now. Right. That's the difference among the scholars. But here the author has said to you, the author he said, sleep prayer is better than sleeping. Salatu Khayrun al-Nawm is in the first adhan. Why? Because we have a clear-cut hadith. It's authentic. If this is authentic, this is the one that will kill the argument. What is the hadith? Hadith Abi Mahdura. It's in Sunan Nasai, and it's authentic. Fadal.
Abu Mahdura, may Allah be pleased with him, stated that the Prophet ﷺ taught him to make the call to prayer, and it included the following words. Come to the prayer, come to the prayer, come to the success, come to the success. Prayer is better than sleep, prayer is better than sleep. And that was in the first call to the Fajr prayer.
First call Fajr prayer. See, this is, the hadith is clear cut. On top of that, there's logic. The adhan is supposed to be those 15 words we have mentioned. Or the 19 words if we added the tarjih, which is the small. So it's 15 words. From Allahu Akbar starts to La ilaha illallah. 15 words. The logic says it's supposed to be the adhan for every prayer. But why the Fajr we have as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm? Prayer is better than sleeping. This is to be done in the adhan which is not the officially adhan. The official adhan is the one what? For you to pray the prayer. For Fajr started. The non-official adhan is telling you, as-salatu khayru, get up for prayer is better than sleep. It's nothing to do with the official adhan. This is the one to do with before the official adhan, which is the first adhan. And you remember we had 2 mu'adhan for the Prophet of Allah in Medina. Who are they? Bilal, and the second one? Maktoum. One of them is blind, and that's Maktoum. His name is Abdullah or Amr, different among the scholars. Or Bilal, which one is the one that God see? Bilal. Which one is being employed? You remember? Which was being employed for the official adhan? The blind or the normal? The official adhan. The blind. Well done. Ibn Maktoum. He is the one official adhan, which is the Fajr starts. Not being given to the one who have sights. It was at the beginning to Bilal, but Bilal was taken away from it. Because Bilal could see, sometimes he depends upon himself, and he made the adhan once. And the Prophet of Allah, he told one of the companions, come and eat. Messenger of the adhan, he said, no, there's something wrong with his eyes. Eat. He said, there is something wrong with his eyes. Whose eyes? Whose eyes? Bilal, radiallahu. Inna fi aynihi su. Something wrong with his eye. So have eaten. He made the blind man, because the blind man cannot determine the adhan for himself. He can't see the Fajr. He's gonna walk. There's no watches at that time. So he depends upon what? Feedback. From whom? People. So there will be consensus that the Fajr is up. People. Al-Marra. People passing by. They will call him while he's in talk. Oh, Ibn Maktoum, Asbahta, Fajr. So there will be consensus by the people that there is Fajr. Not one person to determine the Fajr, ya akhwani. And that's why كل ما شككت حتى لا تشك. In Ramadan, when it's sahah, eat as much as you are undetermined the Fajr until you are 100% this is Fajr. Then you stop. كل ما شككت حتى لا تشك. The Fajr has to come out, and then I will stop. Then I will start my prayer. Stop eating, of course. طيب, alhamdulillah, now we've understood this. That it is Abu Mahdura, he told the Prophet, he said, taught him to make as-salatu khayru min al-nawm in the first adhan. So now from now ishraq, when you make the adhan, it's normal adhan. Salatu khayru min al-nawm, if you made the adhan before the adhan. So if you made 2 adhans, do it in the first one. I don't think you make it the first one because there is no first one here. Why? Because there's no people to wake them up. So when you say as-salatu khayru min al-nawm, who are you telling? We are awake here. صلاة خير من النوم. طيب. يلا قال الأمير الصنعاني.
الأمير
الصنعاني في سبل السلام.
الصنعاني. Allah be pleased with him.
No, he's not. He's like a scholar. Yeah. Ibn Raslan, he said.
Stated Ibn Raslan said, it is sanctioned to make this extra statement in the first call to the prayer for the Fajr prayer in order to wake those who are sleeping. As for the second call, is to inform as to the beginning of the time of the prayer and to call the people to the prayer. Well done.
Right. After that, we have the title.
It's preferred to make the call at the earliest time of the prayer and to pronounce it before its time only for the Fajr prayer.
Right. Can I just ask what time is Isha? 11. Right. So it's finished inshallah in 15 minutes. So here it is recommended that to make the adhan at the beginning of its time and وتقديمه عليه في الفجر خاصة. Go on, تفضل.
Jabir ibn Samura, may Allah be pleased with him, said, Samura said, Bilal, may Allah be pleased with him, used to make the call to prayer when the sun passed its zenith.
That means at the beginning of Dhuhr.
And he did not leave any of the words of the call. However, he would not make the announcement of the commencement of the prayer until the Prophet ﷺ would go out to the mosque.
That means he would not make iqamah until the Prophet of Allah is in the masjid.
When the Prophet ﷺ went out to the mosque, he would announce the commencement of the prayer as soon as he saw him.
That means commencing means iqamah, okay? Abdullah ibn Umar?
Ibn Umar narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, Bilal makes the call while it is still night. So eat and drink until Ibn Maktoum makes the call.
The blind man. Also?
Prophet ﷺ explained the wisdom behind making the call to the Fajr prayer before its time. He said,
before its time, on its time.
It says before its time.
No, in its time, you can't make it. Go on.
He said the call of
you mean like the first adhan, the first adhan, yes. Yes.
The call of Bilal should not prevent anyone from his pre-dawn meal. He makes the call during the night so that the one who is praying may return, and so he may alert the one who's sleeping.
So the one who prays the night he might return, that means the one who prays tahajjud. To stop tahajjud, yalla. So the one who's making tahajjud, to wrap up his tahajjud. Okay, that's what it means. So this is the person who is making qiyam, call him, we're closing to the what? To the fajr, real fajr. So wrap up your qiyam prayer because we're going to start the fajr in a minute. So, and also the person who's asleep to get up and make wudu. So we're talking about 15 minutes, 10 minutes before what? The real adhan. So the one is to be making the adhan 15 minutes before the real one, or even 20 minutes if you wish. But 15 minutes is enough for people to get up and make the, and also you could make sahur, no problem. Because the Prophet of Allah, he said, don't worry about Adhan Bilal. Don't make them to prevent you from food. You could eat and drink while Bilal is doing the Adhan because he's doing it before the Fajr. What do you say when you hear the Adhan and the Iqamah? Fadl.
What one should say upon hearing the call to the prayer and the call or the commencing of the prayer. It is recommended for the one who hears the call to prayer, that is the Adhan, to repeat what the caller has stated. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, if you hear the Adhan, say similar to what the caller is saying.
Okay, so this is in general, if you hear the Adhan, say what the call of the Adhan. So you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Then Umar al-Khattabi says a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, if the Mu'adhin says Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah, ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, you say what? لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. حي على الفلاح لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. طيب, if you said this, from your heart, you'll enter paradise. Now, how can we synchronize between the two? Prophet ﷺ, the first one, he said, if you hear the adhan, say that the mu'adhin says. So that when he says Hayya ala salah, you say what? Hayya ala salah. According to the first one. The second one, he says, if he said Hayya ala salah, you say what? Some scholars, they said, this one is more detailed. So we forget about the first one. And we say, when he says the mu'adhin, Hayya ala salah, we say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Some said no, we combine between the two. We've got Hayya ala salah, the first one, we say Hayya ala salah. Second one, Hayya ala salah, we say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So we combine between the first and then the second. Because the first and the second hadith, exactly the same, but when it say Hayya ala salah, the other hadith says, say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. But this one says, as the mu'adhin says. So either you say this is more detailed than the first one, you cancel the first one, or you say, we combine it together. Hayya ala salah, you say Hayya ala salah. Second one, Hayya ala salah, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You combine between the two hadiths. Now, he who says, then after that, he who says, like the mu'adhin says, the last end of the hadith, after the hadith, what it says, he who says what this mu'adhin says.
When the caller says, come to the prayer or come to the success, if one repeats what he says or says there's no power and might except Allah, or if he says both of these statements, then he has acted correctly.
Alhamdulillah.
When the muadhin is done with the call to the prayer or the announcement or the commencing of the prayer while the listener responding, the listener should then say what is stated in the following two hadith.
So do you understand what he just said here? So if you said Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala salah, or you said, he said Hayya ala salah, you said La hawla la quwwata illa billah in the two, or you said Hayya ala salah, the first one you say Hayya ala salah, you said Hayya ala salah, the second one you said La hawla la quwwata illa billah, alhamdulillah, you are correct, no problem. Do you understand me? So if you want to combine Hayya ala salah and La hawla la quwwata illa billah, no problem. So the first one you say Hayya ala salah, when you say Hayya ala salah, the second one you say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Or you could say in both of them La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, or in both of them you say Hayya ala salah. You're correct. But when the mu'adhin and he had finished from the adhan or the iqamah,
when the caller is done with the call to the prayer, the announcement of the commencing of the prayer while the listener is
so commencing the prayer means iqamah. It's better to say adhan iqamah. Nah. And the listener
should then say what's stated in the following two hadith. Abdullah ibn Amr, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that he heard the Prophet ﷺ say, if you hear the adhan, repeat similar to what he says. and then state prayers for me. For
That's another hadith to say, repeat what he says. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah. Then say salah upon me. Allahumma salli ala.
whoever prays for me, once will have Allah
Pray upon him 10
Azza wa Jal
times.
bless him 10 times. Then ask Allah to grant me the position of al-wasila, as it is a rank in paradise that is only becoming one of Allah's servants, and I hope that will be me.
It will be for the Prophet of Allah only.
Whoever asks me to have al-wasila will be permitted my intercession.
Shafa'ah, intercession will be granted to him. So here we find ourselves that when you finish the adhan, you say after the adhan, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. This is called as-salah. Then salu li al-wasila. That is Allahumma rabb hadhihi ad-da'wati at-tamma was-salati al-qa'imah آتي محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته. Not إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. This is not correct. It's not authentic. Yeah. So up to here, that is the correct supplication after that. So let's just see how you ask for the wasila. And Jabir, Prophet ﷺ said,
Jabir reported that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, whoever says upon hearing the call to prayer,
Allahumma rabba hadhihi ad-da'wati at-tamma, translation,
O Allah, Lord of this perfect call,
was-salat al-qa'imah,
and the prayer about to be performed,
آتي محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة
grant Muhammad ﷺ al-wasila and al-fadila,
وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته.
and resurrect him to the praiseworthy position that you had promised him,
When what happened?
will be granted my intercession on the day of the resurrection.
Happy granted intercession on the day of resurrection. Alhamdulillah. Right. After that,
Note, it's recommended for a Muslim to supplicate often between the adhan and the iqamah of the prayer for the supplication at that time I responded to.
was it iqamah or you put the word iqamah yourself? You put it yourself, yeah? Jazakallah khairan. Commencing the prayer.
Confusing you,
Yes.
yes, I know.
Cool.
Anas radiallahu anhu said that the Messenger of Allah
Sallallahu
sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the supplication between the adhan and the iqamah is not rejected.
Alhamdulillah. Right, so now we've finished up to here, and next time then we talk about ma yustahabbu lil mu'adhin, what is recommended for the caller of the prayer. What is recommended? So next, in 2 weeks' time, inshallah, we'll have that class. And then after that, so the last class in 2 weeks, after that, there will be no classes for 4 weeks. There will be no classes. I'm not going to be here for 4 weeks. Okay? So I'm announcing it from today. So, but next 2 weeks' time, there will be a class, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, now we've finished up to ma yustahabbu lahu al-mu'adhin. What is the mu'adhin recommended to do? And that is not that much. It's only about a page and a half and everything. We'll be finished with that. Let's just do the adhan before we start the question. So the adhan, which is going to be later on said, what is recommended for the mu'adhin to do? Recommended for the mu'adhin, number one, is to be in wudu. To be in what? Wudu. It's not compulsory, but it's recommended. And also to be on top of something high. And also not to make the adhan where the iqamah is to be done. So when you make the adhan in the house, just fold yourself a foot or 2 foot and make the iqamah. So when you make the adhan, put your index into your ears. Like that. This is how the index was in the ears. I don't think it is, I've never seen scholars, they would indicate for us that putting the index in the finger like this. Some people do like this. I mean, this is when you hear an explosion, you do like that. But have you seen people doing like this? Yeah, somebody's shaking his head. I mean, you feel it's like it's not really correct. I've seen it. Allah. So it is slightly like that. So they've seen the hand of Bilal, all of it, but you see the index in opposite to his ear. Then you would say the following: Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Or before he says the shahada, he says Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah to the end. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah twice. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Then he would tilt his head, not his shoulders. Hayya, even the microphone is there. You could just do like this. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. So the person who's doing like this, حي على الصلاة, that's not correct. To turn yourself is to turn only the shoulders, just like this. Sorry, to turn the face, not the shoulder. To turn the face like that. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. You could say like this as well. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. But it's only the head turning. Okay. Then Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. What I've heard some people do wrong when they hear the muadhin saying the adhan, as soon as he says Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, the last one, everybody says what? Come on, the Arabs, what do they say? When the muadhin says, come on, ya Shaykh Jordanian, tell them. He will tell you now. Yes, they will say what? They don't say Allahu Akbar, they say what? La ilaha illallah. Come on, he knows. As before the muazzin says La ilaha illallah, you'll find the whole masjid. La ilaha illallah. True or not, ya Shaykh? 100% he says. That's not correct. It's 100% wrong.
At the end.
Yeah, at the end, before La ilaha illallah, if the muazzin is saying La, you hear them saying this. One person made this bid'ah and everybody followed. It's not even existing in the book. Even this bid'ah is not existing in the books. Subhanallah. We have to say Allahu Akbar with the muadhin, and then he says La ilaha, we say La ilaha illallah. But we precede him with La ilaha illallah. And you don't know why. As I said, one person says one bid'ah, it travels all over the land. And that was in the time when there was no social media. Imagine now. Anything you do in social media, you could really make it quick before it takes time. Right. If you have any questions, we've heard. Jazakumullah khair. The adhan, better would be better. There's priority goes to the people here, brothers and sisters. Fadal ya ikhwan. Put your finger up so I could see you. Fadal ya. Can the adhan do it? Yeah. Can I make the adhan at other than the prayer time? Is that what you're asking? Okay. So for what? Like for example? Huh? Okay. Can I make the adhan? You only make the adhan for declaring the prayer time. Also, you make the adhan for teaching a person. Like we are now, we make the adhan. It's not for prayer, it's just for you to teach. Or you make the adhan as well to read on someone ruqyah. So you are making ruqyah, you say making the adhan in his ear. Allah, the raqi will start with the adhan straight away in his right ear, and he will blow his adhan. And that person, if he's got jinn, he will fly. And that person will start shaking everything from the adhan. Because it hurts him, it harms him, the shaitan. He doesn't like to hear the adhan. So that's the time when you make the adhan. There is no adhan. So there is Jumu'ah adhan for the Jumu'ah. There's no adhan for the Eid. Have you heard about adhan for the Eid? No, there's no adhan for the Eid. There's no caller. Come to the Jumu'ah, come to the Eid. No, there's no such thing. Or just the people come, and then the person who is leading the prayer will start with the Salat al-Eid. Right. Does that answer your question? No. Fadal.
Some people face adhan for newborns.
Well done. Some people make adhan for the newborn. When I answered the question, I did not include the newborn. The brother is asking about something which he got used to it, or got used to hear it from people. The adhan for the child or the iqamah is all of it not authentic. The iqamah definitely is not authentic. The adhan, Ibn al-Qayyim makes it authentic depending upon Al-Imam al-Bayhaqi fi Shu'ab al-Iman. But when the book was printed, we knew from that book that the narration that Ibn al-Qayyim depended upon, which he did not see, was not authentic. It's in Shu'ab al-Iman, the hadith of that. So we knew from that it is not authentic. So Ibn al-Qayyim, he had actually put his trust on Imam al-Bayhaqi. He didn't see the hadith in the chain. When they saw the hadith, we know this hadith. So we don't really make adhan or iqamah when the child is born. What do we do then? There's a number of things to do. To name him first, and also to, as soon as he's born, to put tahniq, a bit of sweet dates, chew it, put it in your finger, and then put it in the mouth of the child. Start rubbing inside slowly, softly, to make him suck. And that's Sunnah in number one, you're making the dates, which is a blessed from Allah to penetrate. The first thing to penetrate his stomach after he came out to the life. Secondly, to strengthen his mouth, to hold on to the nipple of his mother. And thirdly, following the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then on the seventh day, this is where everything takes place, and that is the aqiqah. Two sheep for the male, not two males for the sheep. Two sheep for the male and one for the female, and shaving the head, whether it's a male or female on that day. Okay. As for the naming, you could make the name from the beginning, but the seventh day is as well. You could name if you haven't named them yet. As for the circumcision, you could circumcise him, but it's better to circumcise him for the first day. Actually, would be even easier for you at the seventh day. The longer you take, the thicker the skin will take, and the more painful for the child. Now, yes.
A few questions.
Further, yeah, this is the priority.
Should you say the salam on the Prophet ﷺ and the dua when you hear the adhan on TV?
Very good question. Should I make the salutation, this Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, Allahumma rabba al-da'wat al-tamma, to the end of the supplication after hearing the adhan from the TV or radio or whatever? Yes, you make it. If it's the adhan for the prayer, you make it. Whether it's the Jumu'ah prayer or the normal prayers, you make it. Okay, but not the adhan for ruqyah. I don't make that dua for that. So this is the adhan for the prayer, the adhan for the Jumu'ah as well. You make the. But our Shaykh al-Albani, he has something, because what happened in our country these days, some of the countries like Egypt and also Jordan, we have al-adhan al-muwahhad, united adhan. What means that in the masajid, most of the cities, they do have a radio which receives signal from the radio, and the muaddin who is in charge of the masjid does not make the adhan. He only flicks the button in order to put the device on power, so the device will receive the transmission from the capital for this adhan. Or Shaykh al-Albani calls it dead adhan, not live adhan. Because it's dead adhan, so in front of the people, if you are there, you should not even repeat behind it, you should not even say the dua, because it's a dead adhan. To teach to people that this is not correct adhan, it's supposed to be a live adhan. So now the mu'adhineen in our masajid have been deprived from this. If they make the adhan more than once, 3-4 times, he's been reported. And then he'll be sacked maybe. Well, disciplined first, and they'll be sacked for making the real adhan. He has to make it what? The adhan which is receiver. So they're called now, they are called not the mu'adhineen, they're called the flickers of the buttons. The flicker of the buttons. Some of them that you don't even have to be in the masjid, because some of them they live in the masjid, so he runs a wire from the from that device into his house. So his wife, she flicks the button as well. So while she's washing the clothes, the time tick, she flicks the button. So the radio comes on, and then to receive that. Wallahi, that's what they do. Flickers. So his wife, she flicks the button. No need for the muaddin. Muaddin's job these days is just maybe to clean the toilets. صح ولا لا؟ بنظف الحمامات عندنا. Clean the toilets. صح ولا لا؟ And you know what is this village there? They clean the toilets. They don't need adhan. So where the cleaners or the flickers of the button, Allah al-Musta'an. And some of them, they feel disgusting with the cleaning, so they employ people who are poorer than them to go and clean the toilets for to do the job for them. Allah al-Musta'an. It's becoming not a profession of making the adhan and calling it for the sake of Allah. No, it's just for money. It's just like another job. You blacksmith, you got carpenter, you got a mu'adhin who's doing nothing by that. It's just cleaning toilets, and it's a job for himself. So if they don't pay him for the day, he does not come to make the adhan or flick the button. If they flick the button, it's up to them. Allah al-Musta'an.
Is there any priority given to the people according to the level of knowledge or the age? For example, can a pre-pubertal boy make it when there's older people in the masjid? The adhan?
Can the child make the adhan?
Essentially, is there any way of giving priority to the muezzin? Does it have to be based on certain like levels of knowledge or age or anything?
All right. This is one of the things we're going to learn from the muezzin. The muezzin has to be a person who is having his words and letters correct. If he's not correct, he's not supposed to be forwarding himself to the adhan unless there is nobody better than him. But if somebody who is better than him, he should not really put himself into the adhan position where he mixes up the letters. Like for example, Hayya ala al-falah. Hayya ala al-falah. Instead of falah. Hayya ala al-falah means come to the success. But Hayya ala al-falah, come to the desert. So which one do you want? Come to the desert or come to the success? The difference between Hayya ala al-salah. Correct. But some people, they think is that you make it proper. It says Hayya ala salah. Salah means rectification. Come to the rectification. Hayya ala salah means, so salah, correct. Salah, wrong. Falah, wrong. Falah, correct. People, because the ha and the ha, they are throat letters. They're very difficult for the non-Arab. But the non-Arab can practice, mashallah. They go recite the Quran, half of the Quran. For him, it's ha, ha, ha. Kha, mashallah, for them is easy. Some of them can't really pronounce the Hamza because they're very difficult. Hamza and Ha, they come, for example, this is where they call Huruf al-Halq. There is nothing called Huruf al-Jawf. So, very difficult. The difference between and a. So if you don't understand it, so please practice the adhan before you start making the adhan. The child can take priority if the adult cannot recite the adhan properly. Yes. But the child should not be forwarded if he does not know how to make the adhan. You should be basically escorted, or sorry, should be accompanied by an adult to make sure that he does not do the adhan wrongly. Now, fadal.
Any brothers before I carry on? There's a long
Fadal.
list.
If you do convocation at home, you're doing the imam, everybody else in the house are all females. Can one of them give the adhan or the imam will give the adhan?
So if everybody's a female except for the house, well, responsible of the house is a male, which is the husband or the father. Can he make the adhan and the iqama and the ilida? Of course. No problem to be the muadhan and the muqim and the imam.
No, what I meant was, can a female give adhan as well?
Can a female? I said before, if there's a male, supposed to be the male. But no problem to make your daughter make the adhan. No problem. To make a practice, make the adhan. But usually it is the case, if there is a male and a female, make the child who's a male to make the adhan. But if you are the one who's making the adhan, making the imamah, you might make your daughter practice, no problem, because she's not making the adhan in a speaker outside for home. Yes, make a practice. I'm not saying it's not allowed for a woman to make adhan when the man is there. She's not allowed to make it outside for people to hear it. But I would say it's more of a priority for a male to make the adhan. But I would say in this case, if you want to teach your daughters, make them to make the adhan. Now, Jazakallah. And teach them as well to make them put their hands in there. Now,
12 years of is it you have to make it every single day?
That means he makes it every time he is able to make it. Sometimes you're ill, you're not going to be making it. So every time you're able to make it, you will be making. So those people who are assigned to this task as a profession, mashallah, they should be blessed by Allah Azza wa Jalla. I know of a person, he made adhan for 50 years. MashaAllah, mu'addin. Then he died. May Allah have mercy upon him and forgive his sins. Now, Fadal. I said before when I started here, you must make an adhan. The adhan of the masjid is not for you. It's for the people of the masjid. But for you to make, see, that adhan is to declare for that adhan is to declare the dhuhr started. But your adhan, when you make adhan, is not as for the dhuhr started. This is for your prayer. Do you understand what I'm just saying? So in the masjid, when they make the adhan, they're declaring not just that prayer is going to be started, because sometimes they make the adhan 15 minutes before they start the prayer, true or not? But in your house, it's the adhan for the salah. So you make the adhan, then the iqamah, then the salah. It's not to make the adhan and wait. So the adhan is for the salah. That's what it is. Now, so if you heard it outside with a loudspeaker, like in our home back home, you do your own adhan when you start your prayer. If you do it, what? In the house. But what about even in the masjid? They made the adhan, they made the iqamah, after that, they made the iqamah, they made the salah, and I came to the masjid. There's nobody in the masjid. What should I do? Make the adhan, but for yourself, not for the masjid. So you go to the call, Allahu Akbar, Allah. That's as loud as this. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. As loud as this. Is adhan for myself. Otherwise, you're going to confuse the people. What? Speaking adhan now? That means salah before it was not accepted.
Do we do the same thing at work?
You do that same thing at work. Wherever you are, you make the adhan, then the iqamah. Always ikhwani, adhan wa iqamah. Link to your prayer. It's wajib, compulsory, as your author had stated. Why you want to make adhan in the house? What for? The adhan is for the prayer, akhi. Where are you going to pray in the masjid or in the house? So you don't make adhan in the house. Unless you want to make adhan for your children. No problem. So before you leave, you make adhan for your children so they could start their prayer with the iqamah. No problem. Make them adhan in the house and you leave to do your prayer in the masjid. No problem. No. Tfaddal, Ali Akhtar.
When the account is said and the person says, and people behind say, is there a bid'ah or is that
The iqamah or the adhan?
after the account?
Yeah. Normally it is the adhan. Normally, sorry about that. Normally, where is Arfan? Hello? Hello? I think I've done to it something. Hang on. Here. Bismillah. 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 Is this one? Bismillah. Yalla, Bismillah. Bismillah. Big mixed game. What was the question?
But the
iqamah. Right. So the iqamah. Normally the people make La ilaha illallah after Allahu Akbar, Allah Akbar, the last one before La ilaha illallah. But you're saying to me here, the iqamah, when the iqamah is finished, they say La ilaha illallah. Is that a bid'ah? If they were repeating with the iqamah, like for example, the muqim says Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, I say Allahu Akbar, Allah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah, ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah, then I would not say it's bid'ah. Because some of the scholars, they said, you even repeat after the iqamah. The reason behind this, some of the scholars, they said, that the Prophet ﷺ, he had called the iqamah adhan. He said, مَا بَيْنَ كُلِّ أَذَانَيِّ صَلَاةٍ. Between every two adhan, there is a dua. There is a salah. Prayer. So when the adhan made, could make 2 rak'ah. لِمَنْ شَاء. So he called adhan here as the iqamah as an adhan. So if it is the case, he says, then no problem to make when the muadhin says Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Some of them say no, because we don't really implement every single thing on the adhan on the iqamah. A proof for that, you don't make the iqamah with a melody, and that's a bid'ah. Iqamah should be Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah. It's not Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and you say qad qamatis salatu. You say it is not. It's supposed to be normal. We don't make that with like the adhan. So there's difference between the adhan and the iqamah. So whatever is implemented on the adhan cannot be implemented exactly on the iqamah. And also the time for you to repeat is not that much. Because the muqimi will say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So you will not have time to repeat with him. But I would not say it's a bid'ah, because there's scholars, they would say you repeat with the muqim. And this is our Shaykh al-Albani. He repeats with the muqim. And we said the iqamah now 2 ways. Our way and the Hanafi Masjid way. Both of them is correct. One is being taught by Abdullah ibn Zayd and the other one by Abu Mahdura. Hadith Sahih. The Iqamah, he was saying like this: Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Shadu la ilaha illallah, Shadu la ilaha illallah, Shadu Muhammad Rasulullah, Shadu Muhammad Rasulullah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya al falah, Hayya al falah, Qad qamat as-salah, Qad qamat as-salah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. Exactly like Adhaan, with an addition of Qad qamat as-salah twice. It's correct and authentic. Okay? And it's Hadith Sahih.
But if you don't repeat any word except the La ilaha illallah, can you do that?
Can I repeat except for La ilaha? That's a bid'ah. If I don't just say, just repeat La ilaha illallah, that's a bid'ah. That's not correct. That's not authentic. If I just repeat just La ilaha illallah, the last one.
And some people raise their finger as well.
Some of them, if it's all the time raising the finger, that's not from the Sunnah. So every time Hayya ala salah or Allahu Akbar, that's not from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Fadal ya Faisal. You have questions there? Yes, Fadal. Fadal ya Faisal. Now, hang on a second. Let me just give you. Go ahead. Mute. You could unmute yourself now.
Sheikh, the dua, Raditu billahi rabba, when is that to be said, during or after the adhan?
Repeat your question, please.
The dua, Raditu billahi rabba, when is that supposed to be said? During or after the adhan?
Yes, after the adhan.
So is this a substitute to Allahumma rabba hadhihi da'wati
Come
tama?
to the ma yustahabbu lil mu'adhin, what is recommended for the mu'adhin, and we're going to come to it inshallah when we talk about, and that is, he says, do we say Allahumma rabba hadhihi da'wati tama wa salat al-qa'imah ati Muhammad wa sida wal fadhima? This is after the, you're asking me, or what are you asking me?
No, Sheikh, so I'm saying that one you just mentioned, do we have a choice? Do we say that, or do we say Raditu billahi rabba? Do we have a choice, or do we say both?
You could say both, no problem.
Thank you.
No problem. You could say both, no problem. Nobody can say that you can't say both. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. نعم. عبد الله زكريا.
السلام عليكم أستاذ. السلام عليكم شيخ.
حياكم الله.
حياكم الله يحييك. I have two questions, if you may.
One question, تفضل.
Okay, in that case, when we reading behind the Imam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you, but you said louder. Go on.
Right. So when we're reading behind the Imam, the silent prayers, Salatul Dhuhr and Asr, is the audio still quite bad?
No, I could hear you. I'm just listening.
Okay,
so when you read behind the Imam in the silent prayer,
no, we also to make the prayer and move our lips and allow some sound to come out. Is that correct?
We move lips without sound, because making the sound, it will disturb the one next to you. So
right,
moving
okay.
the lips like this. I'm saying Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. If you have somebody next to you who says, you will be annoyed. You can't even concentrate. You're either going to recite with him or you're going to recite louder than him. You say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Because you can't concentrate on your Fatiha. No. The ones who's got waswasa, they do this. You know the waswasa? Waswasa. The one who's got what? He doesn't know if he read it. So he wants to challenge himself that he's reading it. He says, Alhamdulillah, because he wants to prove to himself he's saying it. So he would say it loud. And even in ruku, Subhanallah, you could hear him. Now, he's making tasbih on your behalf.
Yeah, Sheikh, I might be mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. There was one of your classes a while back in which you mentioned that there's a name given to it and I can't remember, but in terms of the audio comes up and down, even when you're making the dhikr.
Tatrib, yes.
Tatrib, naam. So in this case, the sound comes out and it goes down. Isn't this part of the sunnah?
For what? For we're talking about what? This is the second question.
No, so it's included. I'm talking about the dhikr that you say between the ruku' and also even the recitation itself.
No. Tatrib, this is to do with making the adhan or making the recitation of the Quran. Okay. And then in one letter of mad, you're putting up and down.
Right.
Hayya ala salah. Okay, that's what it means. Because you make it more than meant.
Okay.
But if you're raising it on one melody, no problem, inshallah.
Yeah. Jazakallah khair.
Exactly. Yalla ya tafadhal, Sheikh.
If the Imam
No.
If the Imam says the name of the Prophet ﷺ as part of his recitation, should the congregation say?
If the Imam, sorry, what's that again?
If the Imam says the name of the Prophet ﷺ,
Sallallahu alaihi
Muhammad
wasallam.
ﷺ, as part of his recitation, should the congregation send to themselves the salutations on the Prophet ﷺ during the prayer?
So,
Is there ayah?
so Muhammadur Rasulullah.
Yeah.
أو يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا
No, there's an ayah of the Quran where you say Muhammad.
محمد رسول الله.
And should the people?
No, should not say that.
Sallallahu
Should be quiet and listen to the Quran.
Yes.
Okay?
And not say in your mind.
No, you don't say anything in your mind. You just listen to the Quran. This is not correct. Otherwise, we're going to say to you every time there's Allah mentioned, say Subhanahu wa Ta'ala.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you don't busy yourself except by listening. فإذا قرئ القرآن إيش؟ وإذا قرئ القرآن إيش؟ فاستمعوا له وأنصتوا. فاستمعوا means listen. Wants it to be quiet. Quiet means loud or in your heart, quiet. Now. Come on.
There's one there.
You say Allah, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله. So the Prophet said, say that Mu'adhin says, أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. Say, أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. You don't say, أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. It's not correct.
There's a question.
Fadal.
Maybe last
question. Is it loud?
Alarm clock.
Alarm clock.
Does that count as for home?
Is if the alarm clock is an adhan.
For the home.
Okay, I wouldn't recommend to make an alarm as to be adhan. I would recommend to make an adhan on top of the adhan, but not an alarm.
No, if you get a clock like Adhaan for each prayer.
That's no problem, yes.
Yeah, that's not
Number one, when this adhan is triggered, do not make the adhan and just stop it. Make it to continue. When some of the people, they stop it. Ashhadu an la, they stop it.
Okay, so you don't need to then recite it yourself.
Do I? No, you don't have to recite it yourself with it, but you don't have to.
You get automatic.
Yeah. Yes.
Dead as a.
No. You have to do it yourself. I've got the clock, the same clock that you got. But I tell my children off, don't stop it until it's finished. Then we make our own of them.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. It's nice air coming through, yeah. Feel like
Yeah.
breeze came in, mashallah.
Just to
Another air conditioning.